هو الذي يصلي عليكم وملائكته ليخرجكم من الظلمات إلى النور وكان بالمؤمنين رحيما.
It is He who lavishes His blessings on you, and His angels invoke blessings on you, that He may lead you out of darkness into light. He is most compassionate to the believers.
79. This is meant to make the Muslims realize this. The jealousy and malice of the disbelievers and hypocrites towards you is only due to the mercy that Allah has shown you through His Messenger, peace be upon him. It is through him that you have been blessed with the faith, that you have come out from the darkness of unbelief and ignorance into the light of Islam, that you have developed the high moral and social qualities by virtue of which you stand distinguished above others. It is this which has filled the jealous people with malice and rage against the Messenger, peace be upon him, of Allah. However, in this state you should not adopt any unbecoming attitude which might alienate you from the mercy of Allah. The word salat, when used with the preposition ala by Allah in respect of the servants, it means mercy and kindness and compassion, and when used by the angels in respect of the human beings, it means the prayer for mercy. That is, the angels pray to Allah to bless the human beings with His bounty and favors. Another meaning of Yusali alaikum is, Allah blesses you with renown among the people and exalts you to a high rank so that the people begin to praise you and the angels begin to eulogize you.
تحيتهم يوم يلقونه سلام وأعد لهم أجرا كريما.
On the day they meet Him, they will be greeted with peace. He has prepared for them a generous reward.
80. This can have three meanings. Sad face. 1. That Allah will Himself receive them with peace be upon you, as has been stated in Surah Yasin, Ayat 58. They have been greeted with peace from the merciful Lord. 2. That the angels will greet them, as stated in Surah An-Nahl, Ayat 32. This is the reward for those pious people whose souls are received in a pure state by the angels, who welcome them, saying, peace be upon you, enter into paradise as the reward of your good deeds. 3. That they will greet one another among themselves, as stated in Surah Yunus, Ayat 10. Thus, therein their prayer will be glory to Thee, O Lord, and their greeting, peace be to you, and the burden of their hymn, praises for Allah alone, Lord of the universe.
يا أيها النبي إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا.
O Prophet, we have sent you forth as a witness, a bearer of good tidings, and a warner.
81. After admonishing the Muslims, Allah now addresses a few words of consolation to His Prophet, peace be upon him, as if to say, we have blessed you with such and such a high rank and raised you to an exalted place of honor. Your opponents will not be able to harm you in any way by their propaganda campaign of slander and calumny. Therefore, you should not take their mischief to heart, nor give any weight to their propaganda. You should continue doing the duties of your mission, and let them utter whatever nonsense they like. Along with this, incidentally, the other people, both the believers and the unbelievers, also have been told that the person they have to deal with is not an ordinary man but a great personality, whom Allah has raised to the highest ranks of honor and glory. 82. The meaning of the Prophet's, peace be upon him, being a witness, is very vast. It includes three kinds of evidence. Sad face. 1. Verbal evidence, i.e. the Prophet, peace be upon him, should bear out the truth of the realities and principles on which Allah's religion is based and tell the world plainly that they are the truth and all that is opposed to them is falsehood. He should rise to proclaim without hesitation and fear the being of Allah and His unity, the existence of the angels, the coming down of revelation, the occurrence of life after death, the hell and heaven, all are realities, even if they appear strange to the world, and the people mock the one presenting them, or call him a madman. Likewise, the Prophet, peace be upon him, should openly present before the people the concepts, values, principles and rules pertaining to morality and civilization and social life that God has revealed to him, and reject as wrong all the concepts and ways which are prevalent and are opposed to them, even if the whole world rejects them as wrong and violates them in practice. Similarly, the Prophet, peace be upon him, should proclaim as lawful what is lawful in Allah's law even if the whole world regards it as unlawful, and should proclaim as unlawful whatever is unlawful in Allah's law even if the world regards it as lawful and pure. 2. Practical evidence. That is, the Prophet, peace be upon him, in his own life should practically demonstrate all that he has been commissioned to present before the world. His life should be free from every shade of that which he calls evil, and his own character should clearly reflect that which he calls good. He should be the foremost in carrying out what he regards as obligatory, and most cautious in refraining from what he calls sinful. He should exert his utmost to enforce the code of life which he calls divine. His own character and conduct should bear out how sincere and truthful he is in his invitation, and his own self should be such a model of his teaching that anyone who sees him should know what kind of a man he wants to produce by the faith to which he invites the world, what kind of a character he wants to instill in him and what system of life he wants to be established through him in the world. 3. Evidence in the hereafter. That is, when the court of Allah is established in the hereafter, the Prophet, peace be upon him, should give evidence to prove that he had conveyed to the people the entire message, without making any alteration or changes in it, that had been entrusted to him, and that he had shown no slackness in making the truth manifest before them, by word and by deed. On the basis of this evidence, it will be determined what reward the believers deserve and what punishment the disbelievers deserve. From this one can have an idea of how great a responsibility had Allah placed upon the Prophet, peace be upon him, by raising him to the position of a witness, and how great should be the personality worthy of that high position. Evidently, there has been no slackness whatever on the part of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the matter of giving evidence with regard to the faith, verbally as well as practically. That is why in the hereafter, he will be able to testify that he had made the truth plain to the people, and that is how Allah's argument will be established against them. Otherwise, if, God forbid, there had been any slackness on the part of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in providing evidence, he could neither be a witness against them in the hereafter nor could any case be established against the deniers of the truth. Some people have tried to give a different interpretation to the word witness. They say that the Prophet, peace be upon him, in the hereafter will bear witness to the acts and deeds of the people. From this they conclude that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is watching and witnessing the acts of all the people, otherwise he could not bear the witness. But according to the Quran this interpretation is absolutely wrong. The Quran tells us that Allah has arranged a different system for recording the acts of the people. For this purpose his angels are preparing the conduct book of every person. See, Surah Kaf, Ayat 17-18, and Surah Al-Kaf, Ayat 4-9. After this he will make the people's own limbs also to bear witness against them, Surah Yasin, Ayat 65, Surah Ha-Mim as-Sajda, Ayats 20-21. As for they prophets, they are not to testify to the acts of the people, but to give evidence to prove that they had conveyed the truth to the people. The Quran clearly says, on the day when Allah will assemble all the messengers, He will ask, what was the response you received? They will answer, we have no knowledge. You alone have the full knowledge of all that is hidden. Surah Al-Madah, Ayat 109, in the same connection, the Quran says about the Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, that when he will be questioned about the deviation of the Christians, he will say, I was a witness to their conduct as long as I remained among them, but after you recalled me, you watched over them. Surah Al-Madah, Ayat 117, these verses clearly show that the prophets will not be witnesses in regard to the acts of the people. As to what they will bear witness to, the Quran gives an equally clear answer. O Muslims, we have made you a community of the golden mean so that you may be witnesses in regard to mankind and the messenger may be a witness in regard to you. Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 143. O Muhammad, warn them of the day when we shall call a witness from among every community to testify against it. And we shall call you to testify against these people. Surah An-Nahl, Ayat 89. This shows that on the day of resurrection the prophets, peace be upon him, evidence in its nature will not be any different from the evidence for bearing which the prophets, peace be upon him, community and the witnesses in regard to every other community will be summoned. Evidently, if it be an evidence in regard to the acts, then the omnipresence of all of them also becomes necessary. And if these witnesses will be called to give evidence to confirm that the Creator's message had reached his creation, inevitably the Prophet, peace be upon him, also will be called upon to give a similar evidence. The same is supported by the hadith which Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Imam Ahmad and others have related on the authority of Abdullah bin Masud, Abdullah bin Abbas, Abu ad-Darda, Anas bin Malik and many other companions, may Allah be pleased with them all, whose common theme is this: the Prophet, peace be upon him, on the day of resurrection will see some of his companions being brought, but instead of coming to him they will either be going or being pushed to the other side. Thereupon the Prophet, peace be upon him, will say, O Allah, they are my companions. Allah will say, you do not know what. Prophets, they are not to testify to the acts of the people, but to give evidence to prove that they had conveyed the truth to the people. The Quran clearly says, on the day when Allah misdeeds they committed after you. This theme has been reported by numerous companions and with so many chains of authorities that there remains no doubt about its authenticity. This proves that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is not at all a witness to each individual of his community and to each of his acts. As for the hadith which says that the acts of the people of his ummah are presented before him, it does not in any way contradict this, because its purport is that Allah keeps him informed of the affairs of his ummah, which does not mean that the Prophet, peace be upon him, is actually witnessing the acts of every person. 83. One should note that a person's giving the good news of a good end for belief and righteous acts and the warning of an evil end for disbelief and evil acts, in his personal capacity, is a different thing, and another's being appointed by Allah as a bearer of the good news and a warner is quite another thing. The one who is appointed to this office by Allah necessarily possesses an authority to give the good news and administer the warnings due to which his good news and his warnings are invested with legality. His giving a good news for an act has the meaning that the greatest of all judges, who has sent him, approves of the act and holds it worthy of a reward. So, it is certainly imperative or obligatory or commendable in nature, and its doer will surely get a reward. On the other hand, his giving a warning of an evil end for an act has the meaning that the sovereign forbids that act. So, it is certainly sinful and unlawful, and its doer will surely be punished. The good news and warnings of the one who is not divinely appointed cannot ever be invested with such an authority.
داعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا.
As one who calls people to Allah by his leave, and as a bright shining lamp.
84. Here also the same difference as pointed out above exists between the preaching of a common man and of a prophet. As for the invitation to Allah, it is given, and can be given, by every preacher, but he is not appointed by Allah to do so. Contrary to this, a prophet rises to call the people towards Allah by the leave of Allah. His call is not mere preaching but has also the support of the authority of the Lord of the universe, who sent him. That is why resistance and opposition to the inviter to Allah amounts to rebellion against Allah himself, precisely as resistance to a government official when he is performing official duty is regarded as hostile to the government itself.
وبشر المؤمنين بأن لهم من الله فضلا كبيرا.
Announce to the believers the good tidings that Allah has kept bounteous blessings in store for them.
ولا تطع الكافرين والمنافقين ودع أذاهم وتوكل على الله وكفى بالله وكيلا.
Do not yield to the unbelievers and the hypocrites, and disregard the hurt that comes from them, and put your trust in Allah. Allah suffices as the guardian to entrust one's affairs to, and disregard the hurt that comes from them, The Prophet, peace be upon him, was asked to disregard the opponent's hostile criticism of his marriage.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نكحتم المؤمنات ثم طلقتموهن من قبل أن تمسوهن فما لكم عليهن من عدة تعتدونها فمتعوهن وسرحوهن سراحا جميلا.
Believers, when you marry believing women and then divorce them before you have touched them, you may not require them to observe a waiting period that you might reckon against them. So make provision for them and release them in an honorable manner.
Misdeeds they committed after you. This theme 85. This sentence is explicit that the word nikah here has been used for the contract of marriage only. The lexicographers have greatly disputed over the real meaning of the Arabic word nikah. One group of them says that as a word it is common both for intercourse and for the contract of marriage. The second group says that in its meaning it is common for both. The third group opines that its real meaning is the contract of marriage and for intercourse it is used only figuratively. And the fourth group expresses the opinion that its real meaning is intercourse and for the contract of marriage it is used only figuratively. Each group has cited Arabic poetry in support of its view. But Raghib Isfahani has emphatically asserted this. The real meaning of the word nikah is contract of marriage. It has been used for intercourse metaphorically. It is impossible that its real meaning be intercourse and may have been used for the contract of marriage only metaphorically. The argument he gives is that all the words that have been actually coined for intercourse in Arabic, or in other languages of the world, are obscene and vulgar. No gentleman would like to utter them in a civilized gathering. Therefore, it is not possible that a society should use the word which has actually been coined for this act for marriage as a metaphor. For conveying this meaning only chaste words have been used in every language of the world and not obscene words. As far as the Quran and Sunnah are concerned, nikah is a term, which either implies only contract of marriage, or intercourse after the contract of marriage, but it has nowhere been used for intercourse outside marriage. This kind of intercourse has been called zina, adultery, by the Quran and Sunnah and not nikah. 86. This is a unique verse which was sent down probably in the same period respecting some case of divorce, and so inserted in this context. This shows that it was sent down after the preceding and before the following discourse. Below is given a summary of the legal injunctions that have been derived from this verse. 1. Although the word, believing women, has been used, which apparently may give the impression that the law enunciated in this verse is not applicable to the women of the people of the book, yet all scholars are agreed that this very injunction is applicable to them also. That is, in case a Muslim has married such a woman, all the injunctions relating to her divorce, dawah, waiting period, iddat, and provision at divorce are the same as of marriage with a believing woman. The scholars have also agreed that Allah's mentioning of the believing women here in particular is actually meant to tell the Muslims that only the believing women are suitable for them. That is, although it is permissible for them to marry Jewish and Christian women, it is not proper and commendable. In other words, the Quran seems to impress that Allah expects that the believers would marry only the believing women. 2. The word mas, to touch, here has been used for intercourse by implication. Thus, the verse apparently implies that if the husband has not had intercourse with the woman, even though he has had seclusion with her and has even touched her with the hand, she will not have to observe the waiting term, iddat, in case of divorce. But the jurists, for the sake of precaution, have decreed that if they have had seclusion proper, i.e., seclusion during which intercourse could be possible, waiting period will have to be observed if divorce is pronounced after it, and the waiting period would be annulled only in case divorce was pronounced before they have had the seclusion. 3. The annulment of the waiting period in case of divorce before the event of seclusion means that in this case the man forfeits his right to take the woman back as his wife, and the woman becomes entitled to marry anyone she likes immediately after the divorce. But it should be borne in mind that this applies only to the divorce which is pronounced before the event of the seclusion. If a woman's husband dies before having the seclusion, the waiting period that has to be observed after death will not be annulled, but she will have to pass the same waiting period of 4 months and 10 days as is obligatory for a married woman in normal conditions. Iddat is the waiting period before the expiry of which a divorced woman or a widow is forbidden to remarry. 4. The words, "then there is no waiting term upon them," show that the waiting period is a right of the man on the woman. But it does not mean that this is only the man's right. It, in fact, includes 2 other rights as well, the right of the children, and the right of Allah or of the law. The man's right is on the basis that he has the right to take the woman back as his wife during the period, and also on the basis that the proof of the parentage of his children, which depends on the woman's being pregnant or otherwise, becomes established in the waiting. Provision at divorce are the same as of marriage with a believing woman. The scholars have also agreed that Allah's mentioning of the believing women here in particular is actually meant to tell the Muslims that only the believing women are suitable for them. That is, although period. The reason for including the right of the children is that the proof of a child's parentage is necessary for the establishment of his legal rights, and his moral status also depends on this, that his parentage should not be doubtful. The reason for including the right of Allah, or the right of the law, is that even if the people and their children become heedless of their rights, the divine law requires that their rights should be protected. That is why even if a man gives a warrant to a woman that after his death or after obtaining divorce from him, there will be no waiting period binding on her from him, the divine law will in no case annul it. 5. So provide for them and send them off, a graceful sending. The intention of this injunction would be fulfilled by acting in either of the 2 ways. If the dower had been fixed at the time of marriage, and then divorce pronounced before the event of seclusion proper, payment of half of the dower will be obligatory, as enjoined in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 237. To give more than what is obligatory is not binding but certainly commendable. For instance, it is commendable that besides paying half of the dower the man should let the woman retain the bridal garments, or any other articles that he had sent her for the occasion of marriage. But if no dower had been fixed at the time of marriage, it is obligatory to pay her something before sending her away, and this something should be according to the status and financial means of the man, as has been enjoined in Surah Al-Baqarah, Ayat 236. One group of the scholars holds that something in any case has to be paid in case of divorce as an obligation whether dower has been fixed or not. 6. A graceful sending does not only mean that the woman should be provided with something on divorce, but this also that separation should be adopted in a gentlemanly way, without any kind of vilification. If a man does not happen to like a woman, or there has been some other cause of complaint due to which he does not want to keep the woman, he should divorce her like a gentleman and send her away. He should not start mentioning her faults and relating his complaints against her before the people so as to also prejudice them against her. This instruction of the Quran clearly shows that annexing the enforcement of divorce to the permission of a local council or court is fully against the wisdom and spirit of the divine law, for in that case there remains no chance of sending her away gracefully, but defamation, revilement and vilification do inevitably result even if the man does not so will. Moreover, the words of the verse also do not admit that the power of the man to divorce should be bound up with the permission of a local council or court. The verse is clearly giving the married man the power of divorce and placing on him alone the responsibility that if he wants to release the woman before touching her he must pay her half the dower as an obligation, or something else according to his means. From this the object of the verse clearly seems to be that in order to prevent divorce from being taken lightly the man should be placed under the burden of a financial responsibility so that he himself uses his power of divorce with sense, and there is no chance of an external interference in the internal affairs of the 2 families. 7. Ibn Abbas, Said bin al-Musayyib, Hassan Basri, Ali bin al-Hussein, Zain al-Abidin, Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal have deduced from the words, when you marry, and then divorce, that divorce takes effect only when marriage has been contracted. Divorce before the contract of marriage is without effect. Therefore if a person says, if I marry such and such a woman, or a woman of such and such a tribe or nation, or any other woman, she is divorced, it will be an absurd and meaningless thing. No divorce can take effect from this. The following ahadith are presented in support of this view. The son of Adam is not entitled to use his power of divorce in respect of that which he does not possess. Ahmad, Abu Daud, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. And, there is no divorce before marriage. Ibn Majah. But a great number of the jurists hold that this verse and these hadith apply in the case when a man says to a woman, who is not his wife, "You have divorce on you," or, "I divorce you." Saying such a thing is no doubt absurd, and is of no legal consequence, but if he says, "If I marry you, you are divorced," this is not divorcing before the marriage, but the person is in fact declaring his intent that when the woman is married to him, she will stand divorced. Such a declaration cannot be absurd and without effect. But, as a matter of fact, whenever the woman is married to him, divorce will fall on her. The jurists who hold the view have further differed as to what extent this kind of divorce will have effect. We could also make the exception. Also, about this answer one should note that it was not meant to satisfy the disbelievers and the hypocrites but those Muslims to whom the Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Muhammad and Imam Zufar hold that divorce will take place in any case whether a person specifics a woman or a tribe or a nation, or talks generally so as to say, "Any woman whom I marry is divorced." Abu Bakr al-Jassas has cited the same opinion also from Umar, Abdullah bin Masud, Ibrahim Nakhai, Mujahid and Umar bin Abdul Aziz, may Allah show mercy to them all. Sufyan Thawri and Uthman al-Batti say that divorce will take place only in case the person says, "If I marry such and such a woman, she is divorced." Hassan bin Saleh, Layth bin Saad and Amir ash-Shabi say that such a divorce will take place even if something is said in general terms provided that a particular class of the people has been mentioned. For instance, if the person has said, "If I marry a woman of such and such a family, or such and such a tribe, or such and such city or country or nation, she is divorced." Ibn Abi Lala and Imam Malik, disputing the above opinion, have added a condition that the time limit also should be determined. For example, if the man said, "If I marry within this year or the next 10 years such and such a woman or a woman from such and such a class, she is divorced," divorce will take place, otherwise not. Imam Malik also adds that if the time limit is so long that the man is not expected to outlive it, his declaration will have no effect.